Hello everyone, hello back. Mariana here, founder of Change Anthropopathy and your anxiety detective. Welcome back to our series about childhood anxieties. Today in video 2 I would discuss about how you can identify what type of anxiety your child might suffer from. So also we will talk about why your child has anxiety and some other children might not. And most importantly, I will discuss why it's so vital and important to looking into underlying causes of your child's anxiety. Again, like yesterday, all of this information that I will provide today and discuss today are very important, not only if you have a difficult child with anxiety, but even if you suffer from anxiety or you know family member or friend who experience anxiety, you will get good information and good tips how to deal with that. So there are common anxieties that children may experience throughout different ages and stages, and I will just recap some information what we learned yesterday. For example, as I mentioned yesterday, some infants and toddlers might become anxious and apprehensive when they meet new people and go into new situations, new social settings. Toddlers might be afraid of the dark. They start to develop their imagination and imaginary friends, and they start being afraid maybe about things like monsters in their dreams and monsters in their cupboards. And many children also develop anxiety when they are exposed to new things or change in their life and their routine. So new school, new kindergarten, anything what is new, change and uncertain for them and changing the routine. For some this might happen first time and then when they take for example school bus. For some would be first time when they meet new friends in the kindergarten, start the first time kindergarten. For somebody could be when they experience first time barking angry dog facing them, or have a first time jumping into the pool or lake and putting their head under the water. So many different new experiences that every child would go through. And children who suffer from anxiety disorder experience fear, nervousness, shyness. They start to avoid places, activities. They can experience sadness. So all things what we were mentioning yesterday and explaining about children's anxiety. And what did I say yesterday is that if you notice that your child or you experience anxiety for longer than 6 months, then is the time, and that's interfere with your everyday life and your everyday activities or your child's everyday life activities, then is the time to pay attention to that and maybe seek help for your main health practitioner, like a GP or pediatrician, or from the naturopath if you go natural route. So there are many different types of anxiety that we can categorize in different areas and that you might recognize that your child is suffering from. For example, we have generalized anxiety, we have social anxieties, we have separation anxieties, we have phobias, panic disorders, and many others. So separation anxiety, I'm sure any of you who have little kids have experienced that with your kids when they started new kindy or when they started primary school. So any new environment, they are really really scared and comprehensive to start and step into new environment, to meet new teacher, to meet new friends, and it's totally new for them. It could look very scary. So they are being afraid to be away from you because that's only what I knew up to that point, being only around you and around the closest family. So that's separation anxiety, and as I said, many kids can experience at any point of their life. But if that's gets going on and it's prolonged over a year or 6 months, and they never get settled in the new environment, in the new school, and the new kindergarten, then you have to look into that. So social anxiety is when they're really afraid to go into the new social settings, into the area where there's lots of new people, when they're supposed to speak with unknown new people, or again, same, going into the new school with the new teachers, with the new friends around. So that's the social anxiety, and because of that, you will see that they avoid going to school, avoid going to different, let's say, birthday parties they're invited to, avoid wanting to start new activities, because new activities means new people, new social settings, new environment. Generalized anxieties, you will recognize that if you notice that your child is worrying all the time about themselves, about their safety, or that they always thinking that something very bad going to happen to them in the future, and when they're worrying about about mother, father, or closest relatives, that something can happen very bad to them. So that is usually generalized anxiety symptoms, when they worried and think, oh, something really, really bad going to happen, and they always think and overthink about it, and might be asking questions about it constantly and repeatedly. Panic disorders, when your child have episodes of sudden, unexpected, intense fears, symptoms like they will experience symptoms of heart pounding, of shortness of breath, of really feeling dizzy and shaky, or sweating, and wanting to faint. So that's really scary, and I'm sure if any of you as an adult experience that, you know how scary it could be for you. And can you imagine for the little child who first time experienced something like that and think, oh my god, I'm gonna die, what's going on with me? And they can't explain all those symptoms and feelings. So it could be really, really scary. So on top of that instant panic attack, what they have, then they get more and more scared, and they just exaggerate those symptoms and making them more and more scared, and more having stronger and stronger symptoms of shortness of breath and palpitations, heart palpitations. And why is that? Because at that point, when somebody have a panic attack, we don't breathe properly. We breathe very short, and then the balance of our oxygen and carbon dioxide in our brain and in our body is imbalanced at that point, and that's why we're feeling and having that panic attack. And you might heard doctors or somebody would tell you, okay, if you have a panic attack, just get a brown bag and breathe in and out in that bag, so you will get back that level of carbon dioxide what is needed. So that could be really scary, and that could be cause of many other health issues, and going alongside with that health issues. For example, I had a client, girl who was really sporty, really happy, and she was diagnosed with exercise-induced asthma. And when I was going through with her history and everything, and talking to her, and we were finding out many causes of her asthma, the possible causes of her asthma, like a diet, like environmental toxins and stuff like that. But also we identified together that she actually had a quite emotional event happening to her about 6 months before she started having asthma attacks. And we, after talking to her how that looks like for her, when is that happening, it's usually happening when she's doing her sports, what she was really passionate and was really important to her. She basically had that asthma attack. Yes, that was because of inflammation in her body, because of food she was eating, because of stress and etc. etc. But at the same time, that was really on the verge and looked almost similar like a panic attack, because she was really wasn't able to breathe when she was starting to have those asthma attacks, what doctor diagnosed as asthma, but very after maybe 2 to 3 months working with her and changing many things what we change, it has shown that actually some breathing exercises really help her to really reduce those symptoms, and she almost become symptom free and was able to do all her sports later on and be free from asthma attacks, and she was able not to use anymore, doesn't need to use anymore the inhaler what she was prescribed by her doctor. So yeah, that was really combination of emotional impact that she had, and actually inflammation in her body that causing those asthma, exercise-induced asthma. So what else could be looking at? And we can also see and characterize anxiety in kids as an irritation, and it can show up as an irritation and anger, as we talk about that much lots about yesterday. Then many anxiety symptoms could be really unrelated to you maybe can't really connect it to anxiety, like trouble sleeping or having a upset stomach and digestive issues, being very low in energy, and headaches. What actually I mentioned about that and I explained yesterday. So what is really causing those anxieties in your kids and in other kids and for us adults? What is very important and what I'm trying to put out there for you and for many other people to understand how vitally important is to become aware and educate yourselves about how lifestyle choices and your food choices and your environmental exposure to toxins can make you sick and make you develop chronic diseases, including mental health issues like anxiety later in life or early in life. So it is more important than ever that we take time to better understand those different root causes that starting and triggering anxiety and other mental health issues. So what I do and what many natural health practitioners will do is first of all looking at that underlying root cause of somebody's health issue or mental health issue or chronic disease issue, because if we don't find out that, we might mask and help with some symptoms, but later on in 3 months maybe all of this will come back, and they will be again suffering from the same symptoms, they will be suffering from the same issues. So that's why it's very important to find underlying cause of your child's anxiety or your anxiety, and working on that, identifying that, acknowledging that, and mitigating that underlying cause, which will just help actually with some other support with the diet and other stuff, herbs, herbal medicine, which will just help your body to find again the balance and heal itself. And that's optimally how I work with my clients. Some of the major causes of anxiety and depression or other mental health issues include mental and emotional stressors, environmental stressors, environmental toxins, dietary food choices, and your gut health or your digestive system health. Those are very, very important and vital. And I'm not going to go in deep now about each of them, because each of those will be a topic of our next videos. For example, tomorrow we will talk about mental and emotional stressors that cause anxiety in your children. And what could be those common triggers that actually initiating anxiety in your children? Kids would respond differently to different triggers and events. So if you're a person who knows the best, you are the person definitely who knows the best your child, and your gut instinct will tell you definitely if something going on with your child is off. So it's not normal, it's not just one-off event. So you should really pay attention to that, look at the symptoms, and talk to the child, and if needed really take to the healthcare practitioner, main health practitioner. We already discussed that many kids experience some type of anxiety from time to time, but as you know, if you notice that this repeated all the time over the period of more than 6 months, then yeah, check up and see what's going on, if there is anxiety settling in. If, for example, anxiety making it difficult for your child to get to school each day, to focus on their studies, on their activities, even on social activities and interacting with their friends and family, they might be suffering from anxiety disorder. Anxiety often has the genetic component, but it can also be triggered by of number other factors from the environment in where we live in. And combination of these factors can result in an individual and in a child developing anxiety disorder. And it could be different for each person, because I said each of us is totally unique, unique body, unique human being standing in front of you. That means for each child, for each person in this world. So there are major factors that would trigger start of anxiety, development of anxiety in your child. And these factors could be divided, some people divide them in biological and psychological factors. So biological factors could include genetic factors that are linked to development of anxiety. For example, if a family member has obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, about 20% of first degree relatives have also suffered from OCD in their life. So there is that genetic connection. Same, there are some studies about anxieties. It has been suggested that individuals who inherited vulnerability to develop anxiety disorder also have genetic vulnerability transferred to their children, so they might also develop anxiety disorder. So that's absolutely similar and comparable, like your child inherited your complexion, or your child inherited your eye color. So similarly, they inherit those different genetic composition for different predisposition for different chronic diseases. Psychological factors are depending on the lifestyle of that person and of their life circumstances. Depends on their family environment, depends on their school environment, learning environment where they lived, and what they were exposed to. If, for example, kids were taught and lived in an environment where some certain situations, some neutral situations were taught that they should be fearful. For example, if parents were scared and had a phobia of spiders or a phobia of dogs, then it is possible that the child also would develop that, because they're just copying that behavior, and they're learning in the early stages that they should fear from that. So that's possibly, we can call that as a learned anxiety, because children copying that behavior from the parents, and if they see similarly in the family that parent is a high achiever, or parent is, for example, perfectionist, they also can learn that from the early stage that they should be also perfectionists, they should be also high achievers. Or maybe they learned as a young that they would have a love from their parents if they behave similarly like them. Or if we have another trigger like bullying and social issues in schools, online, very, very developed today online, and it's really unfortunate that also reaching very, very young kids today because of the access to the screens and online and social media in early age. So that definitely affects and triggers many anxiety in children. Transitions from new home, from old home to transition from one town to another town, from one school to another school. Um, that also can cause and trigger anxieties in children. Loss, for example, loss of the pet, loss of the parent, loss of the family member, or divorce in the family, so they're losing the one of the parents doesn't live anymore with them as a family union. Or at the end, violence and abuse, that kids who experience child abuse or witness domestic violence or other act of violence at home or away from home, they definitely very often experience anxiety disorders. So how we can help our children to cope with all of these triggers and exposures that they might be exposed to throughout their life. So when they experience symptoms of anxiety that interfere with their daily life, and when they experience that symptoms in more than 2 weeks, it is important to seek professional help. And if you notice that is really repetitive, as I said. But also there are many other strategies that you as a parent can implement at home and help your child to deal and manage that anxieties. I'm not going to go deep in excuse me, into that today, because that's the main topic of our last video, video 7, where I'm going to discuss actually and give you some points how to approach, how to talk to your difficult, anxious child. So why, that's one of the questions what we have to answer today, is why your child is anxious and other not. And I maybe answered that question already by listing all those triggers and all those environmental factors that your child might be living under. So your child might be living under different experiencing some of those triggers in their life, in their environment, in their school, in their family union, while other kid has not experienced that and hasn't been living in that kind of environment that can experience those triggers for the anxiety. So that's why your child might have anxiety and other child won't have anxiety. Or genetic composition of your child is he's predisposed to be more sensitive than other child, but because of that he will really react on the even simple stressors differently than other children. So all depends on the genetics, on the parenting styles, whether your child has experience of negative or traumatic life events, the environment at home and in school, and your child's specific learning experiences. That's why we have a difference in that response, in that anxiety response between children. And very often, children born to parents who have anxiety disorders or mental health concerns, they have a higher risk to develop anxiety issues themselves, as I mentioned before, as a scientific study shown that. And they also might learn to respond to different triggers in anxious way, because they again copy that that response from their parents and their environment. So I did have a example that I had a client like that, who's a child who was diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, had a trouble sleeping, and she was living with a parent who had depression, suffering from depression, and another parent was suffering from ADHD. So that combination and environment where she was brought in definitely triggered the anxiety response and the development of ADHD, and genetics also working there. On top of that, children also can develop anxiety in response to high stress or situations that they interpret as being very stressful, or perceive that it being very stressful. And this can be common among some kids, older kids who are facing lots of tasks, complex school schedules, tests. They have a burden of lots of after-school activities, so many of them can't deal with all of that, and that's why I developed a stressful response to all of these environmental events and the schedules what they have on them. So what we learned to recap today is what type of anxieties your child might suffer from. Why is your child have anxiety and some other children don't? I touched on to why it's so important to find underlying causes of anxiety and I listed what are the main causes of anxiety could be in your child's case. So tomorrow I will share more about how stressful events could be triggering anxiety in your child and what other emotional stressors, I will go deeper into that, can trigger anxiety in your child. So that first cause of the anxiety that I listed today. And how that stress response and those biochemical reactions that follow in the stress response in your child's body or in our bodies increasing anxiety. So I hope you enjoyed today's talk and you learned lots from that. If you have any questions again, just pop the question below of the video or just direct message me and I will attend answers as soon as I can. And thank you very much for tuning in and listening today. See you tomorrow. Bye.